Mark Rogers TV's college football predictions for week 5. We are just about a half hour from the noon Eastern time kickoffs, Wisconsin, Northwestern, and the rest of the bunch. 1-1 on Friday night. I went with the two dogs in Duke and Washington State. Of course, the Cougars pulled off the straight-up upset, and Duke got blown out by Miami. 16-7 against the spread last week. We hope to continue the roll. We are 14 games above 500 overall at 47-33 against the spread. Have not calculated the overall 66-16 straight up. We like to do better on the confidence picks against the spread. We are 6-4. That's certainly enough to make money, but we have done near 70% over the last several years since we started posting these videos and predicting games since way back, elementary school. All right. Wisconsin, Northwestern. Yes, the Badgers are ready to break out. They are the class of the Big Ten West. Northwestern, though, yes, they've looked bad against marginal competition in the MAC and elsewhere. They got off the deck against Nevada last week in the second half after trailing. Yes, they looked awful at Duke, but we are playing the percentages here. I like Northwestern in a close game to keep it close. Wisconsin wins. The game's at home. The Badgers are a better team. Clayton Thorson, Justin Jackson, and company, they've got injuries on defense. I'm not losing complete faith in Northwestern. I still think they're one of the top 40 to 45 teams in the nation. They stay within the 16 in a confidence play here. Northwestern plus the 16. Badgers win the game. Florida, Vanderbilt, back and forth on this one, and I spend typically all of about 45 seconds making these picks, so don't go wager your wallet on these predictions. It's fun. It's something I like to keep track of. All right, Florida in the swamp against Vandy. The play in Vegas started at 7. It's up to 9 now. I think people are scared with Vandy losing by 59-0 to Alabama. All right, we know that Alabama's a different animal. Florida at home against Vandy. I do think they score late to cover, but this one's a close one for sure. Florida wins at home and covers 9 against Vandy, but not real confident on that play. But the official pick, Gators cover 9. South Florida, Eastern Carolina. If you watch my videos here, you know that I focus almost solely on the Power 5. We definitely cut videos on the Group of 5 and invite guests in from the Group of 5, and would love to expand there when I have a staff. But for right now, not real confident on any of the Group of 5 plays because I only see limited action on Thursdays and Fridays there. I'll take South Florida and the talent. East Carolina has been demolished by the likes of everyone they've played that's been decent. South Florida covers 21 against East Carolina. All right, I've got another noon play in the Big Ten. Confidence pick here. Minnesota's at home against Maryland. I know Maryland is decimated by injuries. They just lost by 28 points to Central Florida at home. This looks like a Minnesota play, right? Well, the Gophers struggle along the offensive line. They've got an anemic passing game. They win close games, and especially now that it's conference play, and Maryland's third-string quarterback has had time. He's had 2 games in which he has not played well and completed 15 of 26 passes, couple interceptions. They do have the transfer quarterback waiting in the wings. I like Maryland to keep it close enough. So take Minnesota to win the game, and PJ Fleck's crew goes to 4-0. But Maryland plus the 13 points on the road. Minnesota doesn't blow out anyone decent. All right, Penn State, Indiana. Sure, I like the Nittany Lions, but Indiana plays just about everybody close. Penn State, the class team, coming off the big emotional win on the road. They almost lost, probably should have lost, converted a couple fourth downs against Iowa. They survive. They come home. Workmanlike effort against the Hoosiers, but Indiana comes in, plays well, and covers 19. So you got Penn State with the win, Indiana plus the 19 on the pick. Georgia, Tennessee. All right, Georgia looks like the dominant team in the SEC East, and they probably will. They will probably finish this out and play Alabama in the SEC championship game, as I predicted before the season, and many others did as well. Tennessee looks awful. They are 3-1, and they have to look like the worst 3-1 team out there in getting by an awful UMass team, 17-13. Being completely outplayed by Georgia Tech, but coming up with turnovers and winning in overtime, 45-44. And then we know what happened in Florida. They could have won the Florida game, though. They had that game. They could be 4-0 right now. Tennessee at home, despite the injuries, despite the poor play, despite the negative vibe, I like the home. I almost called an upset, but the Bulldogs are too talented and are just playing for too much right now. Georgia does win, but think about recent. You just have to go back to last year, but there are many in the last 5 to 10 years. Crazy games between these two programs, Georgia and Tennessee. This might be another one. Take Tennessee. It's ballooned to 9.5. Tennessee plus 9.5 against Georgia. Bulldogs win the game. Louisville over Murray. Don't touch the spread. That's a straight pick right there. Florida State Wake. They're not in the top 25. I'm committed to predict the top 25 games, but sometimes I venture out when the games are important, or in this case, just a bit intriguing. So Florida State's got Blackman at quarterback. They have not been able to score. They were shut down by NC State last week. They have a tremendous defense. Wake has a very good defense. They're at home. I think Florida State has probably figured some things out on offense. I would think this week enough to win the game, but Wake Forest take the 7.5 points at home. All right, another confidence play. Iowa, Michigan State. So conventional thinking by many people who try to do this sort of thing is that you got the big letdown. Iowa at home, they threw it all out on the line. They dropped a close one at the wire against Penn State. They have to go on the road now. Michigan State lost to Notre Dame last week. They'll be motivated. They're at home. They've got the home crowd. They've got it all working for them. Take Michigan State. Okay, I've looked through this is the only research I did on these games. I looked at Iowa's last 4 seasons. You don't see any road letdowns. They are not a different team on the road. We think about Iowa being such a home type team that they gear up for the big opponents in that atmosphere, and that's true. But you don't see much difference between the home and away. They've played formidable opponents on the road and played them well, aside from Penn State last season getting blown out in Happy Valley when the Nittany Lions were on a roll. Other than that, you don't see a whole lot of difference. I like Iowa as a much more sound football team. Yeah, Michigan State was puffed up by the 3 out-of-conference games or the 2 out-of-conference games, blowouts against the MAC opponents. Then they take on Notre Dame. They were outclassed in that game. I see much of the same here. Iowa will not make the mistakes that Michigan State has for the last year and a half, and Iowa will win the game at East Lansing and take the 4 points as well. That's a confidence play. Auburn, Mississippi State went back and forth on this one. 8 points is a lot. Once it crosses those thresholds, 3, 3.5 with a field goal play, or 7, 7.5. So once you start to take a favorite over that touchdown, it means something. You got to hesitate and know that you're confident in that pick. I don't think Mississippi State's as bad as they were last week against Georgia. Auburn has not played well, but I like the Tigers at home to cover the 8 points against Mississippi State. Much closer game than what we saw with the Bulldogs and the Bulldogs last week. But again, Auburn, more talented than Mississippi State. Stidham at quarterback, and they get it done. All right, Ohio State, Rutgers, difficult play here. Anytime it gets into that realm of 30 points where you don't know if Ohio State, for example, last week could have beaten UNLV by 80 points. They let off the throttle and played everyone in the second half, and they won by 33, and UNLV took the spread. Okay, I do like Ohio State on the road at Rutgers. This could be a tricky one. On the road at night at Rutgers. Scarlet Knights very improved on defense especially, but I'll take the Buckeyes to cover the 29.5 as just a way better football team. Washington, Oregon State, similar type play here. Washington covers on the road against Oregon State, 27.5 points, but I would stay far, far away. Alabama, Ole Miss. Okay, the Tide made a statement last weekend against Vandy. People were going crazy about Vandy beating Kansas State. Certainly, it was a nice win for Derek Mason's program, but Alabama is just different. And I think they keep it up this week against Ole Miss. Yes, the Rebels have won the 2 games in 14 and 15, but they have much different personnel, especially on defense now. It's one of the worst defenses in the SEC. Yes, it gets difficult again when you get to 4 touchdowns because Alabama could be winning this game 45-13 late, and then they give up the late touchdown, something like that. That said, Alabama rolls by something in the range of 40-45 points here. Alabama minus 28 over Ole Miss. I'm thinking about making this a confidence pick because I think the Tide is just that good, and Ole Miss is struggling so much on defense. Oklahoma State, Texas Tech. Usually don't like to make these plays. Oklahoma State losing last week. They go on the road. Texas Tech has played very well under the radar. People not noticing Texas Tech, but they're very close to my top 25. They were at 26. Arizona State they've defeated, and Arizona State turned around and beat Oregon. They knocked off Houston as well, 27-24. So Texas Tech has played well. I didn't expect much preseason, but they're now 3-0. Oklahoma State, though, a 10-point favorite on the road. I think they bounced back from the TCU game. They poured it on down the stretch, just couldn't catch the Horned Frogs. I like Oklahoma State on the road to cover the 10 points against Texas Tech. All right, San Diego State at home against Northern Illinois. Remember what I said about group of 5 plays out of me. I'll take San Diego State for the record over Northern Illinois, cover the 9.5. Oregon, Cal. Cal put on a nice game at home against USC. They kept it close. It was still a game with 10 minutes left to play. They did lose by 17 points. Oregon loses to Arizona State on the road. They're a different team at home. I like Oregon to win, but I think 16.5 is too much here. Take the Cal Golden Bears. Colorado, UCLA. I like the upset here. There's got to be an upset in here, and Tennessee was almost my play. I did take Iowa plus the 4 points to win straight up, and I like Colorado at the Rose Bowl winning. The Buffs have not shown much offense. They were blown out by Washington at home last week, but I just think the Huskies are really that good. UCLA is banged up, and they cannot run the ball. Haven't been able to stop the run. UCLA loses at home to Colorado. Take the Buffs, so also take that 7.5 points as well. And finally, the big game at Blacksburg. It's Clemson at Virginia Tech. The Hokies geared up for this one. They won the big game on opening night against West Virginia. They've got a fine team. They should finish 9-3 as I predicted, but they dropped this one to Clemson, and the Tigers cover. I know that it was a close game at home against Boston College last week, but I think they were sleepwalking through that game. Then they poured it on 34-7 after a 7-7 game in the second half. Clemson, much better than Virginia Tech, locked down the Virginia Tech passing game and win this one. And the Hokies aren't a great rushing attack. I think they have trouble scoring in this game. They're in the mid-teens, high teens in this game, and Clemson covers the 7 points. And you know what? Even though it's on the road, Clemson is a confidence pick over Virginia Tech. Lay the 7. Clemson wins by 17. All right, there are my college football predictions for Week 5. Always love to hear from you. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also the long-form conversations on Podbean, iTunes, and Stitcher with some of the best bloggers and broadcasters in college football. We'll see you next time.